All right. We're a little late starting tonight, and that's okay. We'll let other people kind of migrate over. XRP Community Day today was huge. I don't know if you got the time to listen over there on Twitter to all the wonderful people that they had up there speaking. Brad, Monica Long, Jack McDonald here recently in the last hour, and then they've got David Schwartz up there right now. So competing against David Schwartz, I think I'm going to lose. I think a lot of people probably going to be listening to him for at least a little while until him and Crypto Airy do finish it up over there. But a lot of really interesting things coming out of Ripple today in the conversations that were had there. A couple of things from Brad just to kind of kick things off is one, he kind of just doubled down and reiterated to everybody that XRP is at the core of what Ripple does and that they are advocates for the token network. And all the things that they are doing is to be able to garner adoption for that blockchain in institutional manner for enterprises and markets and real world assets and all of the other fun stuff that we know is coming here in 2026. And then Monica Long, kind of just also reiterated that today. She believes, when asked where we're at for the XRPL and for XRP here in 2026, she said institutional adoption at scale. And she said that we would revisit that again December 31st this year. So should be a pretty interesting year. They believe that they are on track to be able to get, again, at scale institutional adoption for the asset, for RLUSD, and for the network here this year. So that would mean that there's a lot of volume, there's a lot more price, which is what a lot of people are worried about in order to be able to facilitate that. And then listening to Jack McDonald, a lot of things going on with ROUSD, and he also had Lauren, who is working with them on the stablecoin side of the business up there speaking, talking about how all the different ways that they are utilizing that in payment flows, treasury management, prime brokerage as pristine collateral with Ripple Prime and the other acquisitions that they made last year. Just a lot of progress for institutions leaning in and actually adopting both XRP and RLUSD. And right now, I think it's primarily RLUSD that you're seeing a lot of traction with. At least that was, the majority of the conversation. Obviously, Jack is focused on stablecoins because he is the head of the stablecoin division there at Ripple. But I think, that's kind of like the gateway drug, if you want to call it, for the adoption of this asset class and stablecoins at scale. Ripple's already working to pilot multiple other stablecoins in other currencies and other jurisdictions. Zanbank announcement earlier this week for the AUD or AED, excuse me, not Australian dollar, but the Middle East version or UAE version of stablecoins there, backing it with their bonds and treasuries. And then, David Schwartz at the end, I was kind of sad I had to hop off there. I love doing this, but I always loved listening to David Schwartz talk too. And to hear him talk about, how excited banks and institutions are to be able to reduce costs by using this technology it's great to see, right? Because he thought, like all of us that are in this space and spend time learning about it and what it is and how it improves efficiencies and all that, like that's what we geek out on. Banks don't really care. They care about making more money. Like that is their job. So any way that they can cut costs and increase efficiency and clip more basis points, that is appealing to them. And utilizing this network and this asset and stablecoins on it allows them to do those things, like money being idle overnight or over weekends or, on holidays. Like we've got, Monday this week, we have President's Day. If you could be making payments, if you could be, clipping additional yield during that time, they want to be able to do that. They want to be able to operate 24/7, 365 without having that money just sitting idle somewhere. And that doesn't sound like a big deal, right? Like a couple days over the weekend and maybe the holidays, the bank holidays, there's 10 of those per year. I mean, but that really adds up. I mean, you've got 52 weeks in a year. So 2 days out of each one of those weeks, money sits idle in the bank. It's not doing much. And then you've got the 10 other holidays. So we're looking at, let's call it 52 times 2. We have 104 plus 10. We're 114 days, almost like not quite a third of the year but pretty close to like a third of the year where their money's sitting idle, not working for them. And then you've got also downtime over the evenings, right? So you could probably get closer to maybe 2/5 of the year that money's just sitting idle. It's not being used, it's not being moved, it's not making payments, it's not generating revenue for these companies. And if you were able to get that back, like, you think about it, you sleep 6 to 8 hours a day. You have to do that to maintain your health and be able to have functioning brain and all the other stuff that we have to have. But if you had some way to be able to leverage that time, I mean, that's 1/3 of your life that you get back. 24 hours in the day, 8 hours you're spending sleeping. If you're taking that much time, I don't, but most people do. Then, I mean, imagine how much more productive you could be with that idle time. And banks and institutions see the same thing with this asset and these networks and what they're going to be able to do with it. The last thing that David Schwartz was talking about before I hopped over here was opposition to adoption of this asset class and why they've seen such friction with the banks. And aside from the regulatory component, which we're still working on, and I think we will get resolved here in 2026, he said the volatility in the asset, even if some people are okay with it, at scale, banks are just not okay with holding a volatile asset. And they're working on solutions and ways to be able to hedge that volatility or only have them hold it for a short period of time in order to be able to make a payment, like with ODL and the product that they brought to market there. But people still have some opposition to that. So I am an advocate and believe that we will see a significantly higher price for XRP, and it'll operate very similar to like an index on the stock market. It takes billions of dollars in inflows or outflows into indexes for them to move quarter basis point. They're very stable once there's enough liquidity in an asset or a market. And the more liquidity they have in XRP, the higher the price of the token is, the more stable that value will be and the more adopted it will be by these institutions. So I believe, the regulatory clarity component with the Genius Act, we have that out of the way. And we will have, the Clarity Act likely this year in 2026 that also changes the game as far as the adoption rate for all the things that are going on. Should have gotten me some water. Actually, I have one over there. Maybe we'll grab it. So, that's where things are at. Really exciting times. Market sentiment is at an all-time low. Bitcoin fear and greed index is at 5. Like, this is the lowest sentiment I have seen literally ever. If you look at the Google Analytics for people that are looking up crypto right now, they're lower than they were after the Terra Luna crash and FTX and Voyager and Celsius in 21 or 22. It is obliterated. Like, if you're still here, you are buying, or at least in the market at a time where sentiment is completely opposite of fundamentals in the market. We're seeing, again, institutions leaning in. I was just here in New York last week for the Ondo Summit, and every large institution, Franklin Templeton, Citi, Goldman, BNY, you name it, they were there talking about how they're going to be leveraging this technology inside of their own infrastructure, and then also how it's going to revolutionize markets here in 2026. And yet people are scared. People are fearful. We were way down in the price. So, my favorite quote, and I think Brad Garlinghouse said this the other day as well. He said, Warren Buffett, one of his famous quotes is, be greedy when others are fearful and be fearful when others are greedy. There's never been more fear. We are literally the lowest it's ever been in the market for fear right now. So if there was ever a time to be greedy, again, it's probably a good time for my disclaimer. Not a financial advisor. I can't give you financial advice. I'm only here for entertainment and educational purposes. If you need financial advice, reach out to a wealth manager, a financial advisor, and they can help you with it. If you need somebody that deals with crypto, you can reach out to Digital Wealth Partners. They are really the only RIAs in the world that will provide you financial advice when it comes to allocating toward crypto and your portfolio. You can just go to digitalwealth.net. So all that being said, though, again, fundamentals all-time high, and you've got sentiment at an all-time low. I think we're at an inflection point. I think that the Clarity Act should get put toward the Senate here in the near future. They had the markup and it got through. None of the Democrats voted for it. And so if we do make it to midterms and we don't have it across the line and the Dems do get in and can take control of the House or the Senate, we might not even see the Clarity Act this year, which would be detrimental. Ripple is a huge advocate for, a multi-chain future. One of the other things that Jack and Lauren were talking about is wrapping XRP on other blockchains or how it's interacting in those ecosystems. And that's how they kind of determined where they should be launching RLUSD. They just launched on a couple other L2s on Ethereum, Arbitrum, and some of the other networks they're issuing RLUSD on. The ecosystems that are adopting XRP as collateral or using it in some capacity in DeFi is where they're spending their time and where they're issuing RLUSD. And there's a synergistic component between Ripple's RLUSD and XRP. It's kind of an infinite feedback loop, and they work extremely well together to be able to settle value and payments. Same thing with other stable coins as those are issued, and Ripple works with other counterparties to get those to market. You're going to continue to see the adoption of XRP because, again, they stated it again today. It is at the core of their business, and I was super excited for them to host XRP Family or Community Day and get up there and kind of explain to everybody. Because, again, like these acquisitions, people hear that and they go, okay, that's cool, but I really don't know what that means. If you don't understand prime brokerage and how derivatives work and the lending and what they're doing with collateral there, it sounds ambiguous. You really don't have a concept of what that means for the market and the adoption of this asset. And then, G Treasury, like that was huge because, again, of all the things I just mentioned, idle capital is not earning money during that duration. If they're able to hold RLUSD and participate in the money market, or be able to move from tokenized deposits into a money market and back and forth, and it's ubiquitous and liquid 24/7, 365, you're able to aggregate a lot more value and generate a lot more value and also reduce fees and costs that you had in the other system. So why wouldn't you adopt that, right? Pivotal year in 2026. And I think we're, on the precipice. And that was another thing. I think I mentioned this on the Monday live, but we had Paul Adkins talking on a news network earlier this week, talking about the tokenization of the back end of the stock market, and that we were right on the cusp of that taking place. That will happen before they tokenize stocks. You need instant settlement on the back end between the clearinghouses and the brokers to be able to settle real time T0 or T+0 versus T+1, which is what we are today, before they implement the tokenization of the stock market. And they said that they were going to tokenize the stock market in the latter half of this year. So after Q2, again, hopefully the Clarity Act will get passed. Robinhood also diving in here, creating their own blockchain to be able to tokenize stocks and things there on their exchange or their brokerage. Many of them are leaning in here, including NASDAQ, NYSE, New York Stock Exchange, Texas Stock Exchange launched this year. They'll be doing ETFs first, and then toward the latter half of the year, probably Q4, launching actual tokenized stocks themselves. And I think that's what Robinhood was looking at. I think the progression will be they'll tokenize ETFs or the larger cap stuff, and then they'll move to individual stocks as they move on. But again, first order of business is back-end settlement and real-time clearing for the DTCC. And I think that might coincide with a little bit of price appreciation on certain assets that people hold that might be listening to this. All right, we'll go ahead and jump into the questions here. Again, appreciate you taking time out of your Monday to come hang out with me. Maybe you're listening to David Schwartz and me. I don't know if he's still on there on Twitter, but I think that'll probably run for maybe another 15 minutes here. Again, always enjoy listening to David and talking to him. There's been a few times that I've had the pleasure of speaking with him at Consensus and Swell and on other occasions. And he's always full of knowledge when it comes to the new amendments that are coming to the network and how they're going to impact Ripple's ability to scale, and then also the adoption of the network itself. So, and I always forget, please like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. It does help the algorithm and helps the channel. I always forget to say it. So we'll jump into the question. We got Todd, excuse me. He says, what are your realistic price expectations if/when the Clarity Act passes? I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I believe that we're going to see price appreciation for XRP prior to the Clarity Act passing. XRP has a moat right now where it is really the only asset that sits uniquely positioned to facilitate the volume of payments that would be required for certain markets prior to that bill passing. And it's really the only blockchain that has the functionality that would allow for institutional adoption with digital identity, credentials, permission domains. And here we've got permission DEX that's going to go live in just 7 days on the 18th of February. So 7 more days and we'll have permission DEXs there. And that's the last piece of the puzzle for Ripple to really get institutional adoption for the payment component, leveraging XRP to settle those. So all that being stated, if they continue to push this out with the Clarity Act, it might be right after XRP appreciates that we see the Clarity Act passed. And then that would, again, just pour gas on the fire at that point. I feel the same way about permission DEX. Corda can already leverage XRP to settle between siloed ecosystems utilizing the Corda settler. And again, that's what Project Ion was. It was a partnership between the DTCC and R3 that was finalized in 2022, prior to XRP having clarity here in the US. So, if there's enough liquidity in XRP, then we would potentially see them start leveraging that to, get to all the things that we want to happen. But the Clarity Act is important, and institutional adoption at scale, I do think is going to require real regulations around that. And I think they may strip out the DeFi component because that is really kind of the friction and the opposition that the Democrats have on the bill, but that markup passed. So they're voting on it as is. I think that if they don't get it through, they're going to have to remark it up. And then if they pull that piece out and you just give clarity to what is a security, what's a commodity, what's a currency on chain, then you will have another bill later on that has, all the DeFi components. The interesting part about the XRPL, and David Schwartz was just talking about this, again, another reason I love listening to him, is all of the TradFi lending components happen off chain. It's just the facilitation of the credit transfer or the debit and credit that happens on the XRPL. It's very simple, right? So if you had an Oracle that could move that or transfer that on chain, you still got to underwrite the risk on the loan. If it's not over collateralized, which institutions need, they're always going to underwrite the risk on the loan, look at your credit score, look at your income, look at all the stuff that they do before they issue you a line of credit or a loan, whatever the collateral is that you're buying with the loan, a mortgage, a car, all that stuff. Right now, you can put up collateral on chain and be able to borrow against that. That's awesome. The other piece is when he was talking about the loans on the XRPL, you really can't tell how a portfolio of loans is performing right now. There's not a real easy way to do that. But with the token value that's going to be issued against those portfolios of loans, one, you'll be able to participate and put your liquidity to work in one of those portfolios on chain. And because it is a native piece of the network, there's no one counterparty that controls that, right? Like you're going to have some oversight. You'll have a broker. I think that there'll be 4 components to the loans on chain. You're going to have the person lending the money, so the lender. You're going to have the borrower, the person that's borrowing the money. You'll have a broker that kind of sits with oversight and does the underwriting of the risk and all of that. And then you're going to have an arbiter or somebody, if there's a lawsuit or something bad that happens and there's, an argument on what, somebody didn't repay something, there's going to need to be a component for that also. So you're going to have, it'll be 4 people involved. But again, a lot of that happens off chain. And really the only thing that happens on chain is the facilitation of the credit on the XRPL. And there's no counterparty risk or one centralized authority that's managing that ecosystem or earning off of it. It's the people contributing to the pool that will be getting the returns for whatever the lending rate is. So I think, they've been very methodical and they've thought through what the easiest path to adoption is for a lot of this and removed the counterparty risk, which is what you have in a lot of these other ecosystems on other EVM chains. There's one centralized authority that runs that smart contract. It's not embedded in the network and it's kind of derivative or sits above that. And that, again, provides counterparty risk for one other person involved in that transaction that might see one thing or another and decide to execute something. So I think, you'll have the lender or the borrower as a signer and the broker as a signer. And once the loan's repaid, they'll be able to reissue or release the collateral back if there is collateral put up. And you're going to, again, need some tokenized form of that collateral, titles, right, for real estate, for vehicles, whatever it's going to be that you're going to be purchasing. Right now, that title sits with the bank until you pay off whatever that asset is, right? So that they're able to recover that loss if there's a situation where you aren't able to make payment, you default on it, they repo your house or whatever it is. They obviously don't want to do that because then it's a big headache for them, but that does happen. One of the things, if you are interested in real estate, something I learned about 4 years ago is I think it's like the first or second Tuesday of each month, at least here in Texas, on the courthouse steps, they will auction off the properties that are currently in default. So, if you're trying to pick things up cheap and you want those opportunities, you can go bid against other people for those properties on that day in whatever county you're in. And that's, an opportunity post price appreciation for a lot of people. Went way off the rails there on the question, but we'll go ahead and dive back into them here. We've got Steel City Flooring Incorporated. Very cool. They say, hey, Jake, how many years or if ever do you think it will be able to buy a house in actual XRP or leverage a loan, a portion, it says lotion, puts the lotion on the skin for one. Thanks for everything that you do and God bless you and your family. Thank you, man. I really appreciate the kind words in the super chat. So we actually are talking to a company right now that issues cross-collateralized loans for Bitcoin to be able to lend on a mortgage. And they have had a lot of interest for XRP. There are some people that are still in a position to be able to do that. The interest rate when it's cross-collateralized like that is much lower versus just borrowing against the asset itself. And they've had a lot of success with that product. I think they've done maybe a quarter $2 billion in loans. And I think that they'll continue to do well. I'm trying to think of the name. I'll have to go look at it. But we would love to see that for XRP. I think you could probably see that here in 2026. If we see some significant price appreciation, products and solutions will come to market. People will build this stuff. They're going to move where the liquidity is. We are unique in that we see the value proposition for XRP and anticipate that move in liquidity. And we've, curated a lot of these solutions prior to that appreciation where other people are going to wait. Institutions are going to wait, right? They're going to wait until Bitcoin had $1 trillion in market cap. There really wasn't a whole lot. We didn't see ETFs. We didn't see a lot of these solutions for lending against it as collateral. I mean, you could through smart contracts, but there wasn't, people with lending licenses or, the licenses to be able to actually do that. You could just do it on chain in a smart contract, wrap it on Ethereum, and then go post it as collateral over there and get the cash out in a stable coin and then convert that to fiat to be able to do the house transfer or purchase. I think you could likely see that here in 2026, which would be fantastic. And we are absolutely pushing forward on that solution. We already did this one. Again, appreciate you on the super chat there. We got Salvador. He says, hello, Jake, DWP all in. My dude, glad to be working with you. He says, if Ripple becomes a bank, they are already a bank. They have their provisional license from the OCC as a federally chartered bank here in the US. And I believe they should have full clarity on that if they don't already in the very near future, past their provisional period. Same thing for Paxos, same thing for Circle, same thing for Fidelity, and then BitGo were the five provisionary licenses that were issued toward the end of last year. It says, could it deliver the same high value yields banks oppose in stablecoins by mirroring savings accounts as tokens and paying yields at the bank level instead? So a couple of things there. Tokenized deposits are the way around stablecoins. Like I've already had multiple conversations with banks, and they are definitely going to tokenize deposits, and they will be able to pay you a yield on that. They won't be able to pass you the yield on the stablecoin if you're holding it. At least how things sit today. If Coinbase has their opinions on this, but I don't know that they're going to win on it. They're trying to kind of go back and change things in the Clarity Act versus how they were passed in the Genius Bill. I think that you will be able to earn a yield on the tokenized deposits. Not so sure on the stable coins. I think stable coins are going to be primarily used by institutions for their own internal settlement. Citi's stablecoin will be for their bank. Goldman's stablecoin will be for their bank. Bank of America has their own. JP Morgan has their own. These banks aren't going to want to hold the counterparty's stablecoin because they would rather issue their own and be able to hold the treasuries and generate the yield off of that, right? Like there's an inherent value to holding your own stablecoins over somebody else's. Tokenized deposits, on the other hand, yeah, you'll be able to swap between your money market and your tokenized deposit or earn a yield on your tokenized deposit there at the bank. And if they're able to earn 2/5 more money on your money than they are today, they're going to be much more willing to pay out a yield to you to be able to aggregate more of that capital, right? But Ripple themselves, so Ripple is an enterprise B2B solution provider. They're going to deal with institutions. They're going to deal with enterprises. They do treasury management. I don't think they're ever going to have a product that's directly consumer facing. Now, that's not to say they wouldn't work with some of their counterparty to disseminate that or democratize access to it to retail or consumers. Brad actually talked about that today at XRP Community Day. He said, they're excited to work with partners to be able to create consumer-facing products, but it's not something that they themselves will be doing, even though they have the regulatory license as a federally chartered bank. They're working on institutional flows, again, enterprise payments, large value payments, back-end settlement. That's where the money is. Again, people go where the money is. Retail is not where the money is. And so that's their focus, but that's not to say that they won't work with other counterparties to get some of that stuff to market. And I am, extremely excited for that here in 2026, because I do think a lot of those solutions will be made available to retail that are holding larger amounts of XRP. All right. Again, awesome questions. I love doing these. I love coming on here on Monday and Wednesday nights and hanging out with you guys. It's a little late for some people. A lot of people listen back to these later on, but I get a kick out of it. It's a lot of it's fulfilling for me. So I appreciate y'all taking the time out of your evening to come hang out and ask great questions, and really, get it going, running up the chat here. Rick, my man, Mr. Johnson, he says, Mr. Popeyes. Number one, Beavis, I only had to go pee-pee, so I don't need any more TV. Oh, geez, Beavis and Butthead. My son really hasn't watched Beavis and Butthead. I've been able to keep him sheltered from that. We watch The Simpsons every once in a while, and that's probably the most progressive cartoon that we watch. South Park, another great one, but I don't think he's even aware of that either. On to the question number 2. He says, please flex and how us and show us your Popeyes. So, I don't know if, that's good enough for you or not. My arms are not what they used to be. They used to be 20 inches a piece. They're down to about 18 now, laying off some of the juice. And I don't work out anywhere near as much as I would like to anymore. I'm lucky if I get 2 or 3 days a week now. And I still maintain, I'm like 225, 227, 12, 13% body fat. So nothing crazy. I fast a lot. I don't talk about that on here, but I fast most of the day. And then I eat, 1 or 2 meals. And I normally consume somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 calories a day. I'm also sedentary compared to what I used to be. I used to be walking around a lot and expending a lot more calories. The more muscle tissue you have, the more calories you expend just sitting still. So, if you're not weight training, you might consider it. Even if you're a lady, you will live longer. You'll have higher bone density. You won't get osteoporosis. There's a lot of good things that come from putting pressure on your muscle tissue. Not so much your joints, right? You don't want to degrade those. So you want to work with somebody that, knows how to train. Machines are great. I use a lot more machines than I used to when I was younger. But we'll get back to the crypto. Again, appreciate the super chat and the support. He says, it's Logan Ryan. He says, hey, Jake, big fan from New Zealand. Awesome, dude. Good to see you. When the Clarity Act gets passed, do you believe it will be a flick of the switch moment, or will it be as slow for price? Depends on the asset that you're discussing. I think that XRP will, again, appreciate prior to the Clarity Act passing. I think that it's, again, uniquely positioned to be able to take large market share prior to that even coming to fruition. We're right here on the precipice of it. And then When it comes to the rest of these assets, I do think that those would be more of a slow grow. I do think it'll be aggressive in comparison to some of the other things that you've seen. HBAR, XLM, Hash, XDC, Quant, many of these other networks that are going to be used at scale post Clarity Act. Avalanche is another fantastic one. We can custody Avalanche. We can custody, well, we can do HBAR at DWP now. It's cumbersome, right? So if you are working with Digital Wealth Partners, if you want to reach out to your advisor, we can't do anything else with it yet. You can deposit it, and then you're going to pay AUM fees on it. So might want to hold off on that until we have a product or solution to be able to generate returns to cover the fees on it. Shooting myself in the foot on that, but some people just want their assets in Anchorage and institutional custody to make sure it's secure and insured, and their family's going to have access to it. So if that's you and you're willing to pay the cost for that service and that benefit, and to have all of your portfolio in one spot, you have XRP, XLM, Bitcoin, Solana, Matic, Chainlink, Ethereum, and HBAR. It's, again, a manual process to create that wallet over there, but we do have it if you guys want to move that into institutional custody, and again, pay the AUM fees until we have something that's functionally available to generate returns on it. Anyway, so all of those, I do think will have appreciation post Clarity Act and adoption, but I don't know that they'll be as aggressive as I think XRP is going to be in a very short period of time. I think XRP is going to be a big jump, and the rest of them will kind of be a slow grow. DFW Mike, my man, he says, "Good evening, legend. Thanks for everything that you do." Enough said. Thank you, man. Thank you for the super chat, the 589 super chat. 589 is an interesting number. I was on a podcast here just recently where they asked me, kind of the meaning of that. I follow 589 people over there on Twitter. So does Brad Garlinghouse, and I think Ripple follows 985. Just for tinfoil hat esoteric people, I'm into the woo-woo a little bit. If you multiply 5 times 8 times 9, you get 360, which is a full circle, 360 degrees. If you add it up, you get 22, which is the beginning and the end in the tarot. The world and the fool, right? So the end of the journey is the world. The beginning of the journey is the fool. And I like to play the fool, right? I'm always learning. I come in ignorant to things. I want to understand more. And the more I know, the more I understand that I don't know anything. I'm in my mid-30s. And a lot of the stuff I come on and talk about here for financial education and the business stuff, I didn't learn any of that in college. I think they're going to have to completely revamp our education system with the advent of AI. They've really kind of curated that to where people become workers in factories. That was what Henry Ford wanted, and Rockefeller back in the day when they changed the educational system and kind of removed the financial education that used to be in it. I would love to see that brought back, and I would love to see, real world application. In school, they teach you it's not okay to fail. You're going to fail at pretty much everything that you do the first time that you try it, or the first couple times you do it. And that's the only way you learn a lot of the time, unless you listen to people that are smarter than you, that have been there, done that, been through the potholes and the problems, and you kind of, take a step up and kind of stand on their shoulders. That's what I try to do. I try to find people that are significantly more intelligent than me, that have wisdom, that have decades of experience and stuff. And we partner with those individuals, and we share our expertise in crypto, and then they share their expertise in whatever domain they're proficient with. So again, it kind of goes to the mastermind, right? We have a mastermind of about 18,000 people that are in that community that all have different walks of life. They're different ages. They have wisdom and domain expertise in different areas. We come together and do, in real life events more so than any other community in crypto. And a lot of them have aligned interest in their investments in digital assets, more utility based things. But we do have some people that hold, larger amounts of Bitcoin, ETH, Solana, all these other assets in there as well. So if you want to get in there and you want to be participating with other cool people prior to price appreciation, and get around people that you can learn from and ask questions with, that will help you with things. The culture in that community, again, you have aspirations when you start stuff, and just at scale, it's hard to maintain that type of culture. I've been blown away by the caliber of individual that we've attracted with that group at the price point. Many of the masterminds that I've participated in over the years, $2, $3, $5, $25, $30,000 per year just to get into the room to have the conversations with the people that are there. And it's really kind of a barrier to entry to keep people that may not be qualified out. We don't do that. We want to be able to help 1 million people become financially free with that community and everything that we're building at Digital Ascension Group. And so, it's $25 a month for social. We've got $100 a month for Carbon One. We've got, Carbon 2 and higher, it's $250 a month there. And then we have a private community that's Carbon 3. But we would love to see you in there. If you want to use the code that's circulating at the top of the deal right here, it's Beyond Broke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO like Mary Oscar, all capitalized. Gets you the first month for $2 there in Carbon One. So go check it out. It's month to month, no contract, but for 18,000 people to stick around, I think that should tell you something about the value that people are getting from it. We got Green Est, excuse me. They say, are DWP AUM advisor fees a tax write-off for the holding company? Yes, they are. They sure are. If not, for most people, at least 2.5 to 3% yield returns would be required to break even after taxes. Yield product equals placeholder. Yeah, you're not wrong. And that's why we've been pushing so hard on that product. We want a monthly distribution on some type of yield that's, there's nothing that's a risk-free or riskless, and there are no guarantees. But the way that we're structuring this with the counterparty we're working on, pretty much like as close as you could possibly get to that. I'm looking at, somewhere between 3 and 4% with current interest rates from the Fed. If those come down, then that yield will come down. But that's where, we should be able to pay people out that much on an annual basis. That'll be amortized monthly, so looking at maybe 30 basis points a month on the return. And that's more than enough to cover the 16 or 17 basis points we charge per month if you're less than 5 million. Post price appreciation, I think a lot of people's AUM fees are going to come way, way down as a percentage. Over 5 million, we drop it to half a basis or 0.5%, so 50 basis points. And over 10 million with us, we drop it to 40 basis points, or 40% of 1% per year is all we charge. And again, that's mainly to cover our costs. We have overhead, we have compliance, we have all the red tape and all the stuff that we have to deal with, along with our partners, Anchorage. They take their fee out of our fee. It's not an additional fee. And we try to align our interests, right? The difference between us and many of the other counterparties out there that do something similar on the institutional custody side is, I don't want to say we want you to hold the asset. We believe that the long-term value of the asset will be greater than what it is today, and it would be in your interest to retain that asset versus selling it. So when you sell or buy through Digital Wealth Partners, it's only 20 basis points. That's all they charge with no spread. So it's not like you go to Kraken or Uphold or Coinbase or one of these where they've got a spread and a fee. You can do, I think Coinbase One doesn't charge you a fee unless it's over a certain amount, but you have to pay that $100 a month, and then there's still a spread. They sell it to you lower than the actual price, and they buy it when you sell it to them. They buy it back at higher than the actual price, so they pay less. And it's around still 1 to 2% of whatever the actual price is on those trades. If you are using exchange to do that versus us, we are either 5 or 10 times cheaper on the trading component. But again, we make our money on the AUM because, again, we believe in aligned interest. Great questions on the tax deal. If you guys didn't catch the tax webinar we did with Dylan the other day from Wilk CPA up there, or actually up here in the Northeast, I would highly encourage you to go check that out. I don't know if it's posted on the channel or not, but he gives you deep insights in how to be able to mitigate taxes, write things off. They're a progressive CPA, and they're willing to use the wash rule and do anything and everything for crypto education, travel, all that stuff. They will help you write it off, and again, including the fees there for any of the services we're providing. This next one says, when will I be able to earn a yield to cover my advisory fee? Hot topic of conversation. Nobody, I can guarantee you this, nobody wants that yield more than I do. We are pushing as hard as we possibly can to get that across the line. We've been working on it for 7+ months, and there's just been a lot of friction and back and forth and compliance and tax and all the things that we need to be able to orchestrate with the counterparty that we're doing it with. And I think that should come to fruition. I've been saying, for a long time that I thought it was going to come to fruition. We have the green light. We're at the finish line on it. So, maybe it gets deferred till post price appreciation. But I'm confident that we'll have it kind of in a weeks, not months type scenario for you guys. So if you are interested in working with Digital Wealth Partners and you do want to be proactive, we can take individuals. We always recommend that people set up a holding company there in Wyoming. We'll help you structure that. We do it for the cheapest. Well, I don't want to say the cheapest. There's probably some people that'll do it cheaper out there, but I don't know that they're going to do it the right way. We've done over 7,000 of these things, and we're very proficient with it. Versus, somebody else that might have done a few. There's some nuance there, and we talked about that in the tax webinar a little bit about setting up a single member LLC that's a disregarded entity and why we structure it that way. And you're contributing the assets at your cost basis to the LLC when you move them in there. All of that again we went over, but we recommend doing that, setting up a living trust or an irrevocable trust depending on how much you have and how much you think the price is going to appreciate, what your long-term goals are. The financial advisor and the estate planners over there at financial advisors at DWP. The estate planners are at digitalfamilyoffice.io, our Digital Ascension Group, which is our parent company. You can go talk to one of them and they will, help you through whatever's going to be best for you before you move it into institutional custody. But what I was going to say was, if you want to be proactive, if you're already in a position where you have over 50,000 XRP and you want the institutional custody, but you might be waiting on the yield product, you could go ahead and start that onboarding process, pay the fee and get in over there, and then wait to fund your account until we have that product to cover the fees. So don't tell my team I said that. But you could push that out a little bit. We have some people that are already doing that, just waiting to fund until we have the yield product, and that's understandable, right? They're holding it on their cold wallet and they're like, well, I'll just wait until I know I can cover these costs before I move it in here because I don't want this extra coming out. But I think we're close enough on that if you wanted to go ahead and be proactive and set that up and get onboarded, you could be very first, be close to first in line to be able to access the yield product when it is live versus waiting to onboard. And then I think we're going to have a pretty significant inflow of people when we do announce that product in the near future that is live and capable. And every time we do something new and we've got something we bring to market, we have a large influx of people. We have a lot more staff in place now to be able to handle all that. We've been doing a good job scaling up, but there could be a little bit of latency there. So if you want to be proactive, I like to be proactive. I would go ahead and go set up an account there if you're interested in it. Mr. Johnson again says, Jake, Mr. Rectom has already said he was leveraged in the red going long on XRP, but had assets to cover it. I bet he levered himself betting on reverse carry trade and domino theory. He attacked you as he was wrong in his big financial hot water. I don't know the whole situation going on over there. I really haven't been paying a whole lot of attention to it. We just deal with our attorneys on that situation. I hope that's not the case. Again, I don't wish bad or ill on anybody else. Not sure what we really did to, deserve what happened. But we're working through that. And again, my attorneys are, working on that deal. So I'm sure there'll be more news in the near future and we'll be able to share that here with you guys. We got Redeemed Adventures. Very cool. They say, hey, Jake, steering clear of absolute predictions. Do you think it's highly probable that HBAR and XLM could reach $150 to $300 by next summer of 2027? We need the Clarity Act passed. And both of those networks are more curated toward peer-to-peer and merchant services. And also dApps, DeFi applications on the internet for HBAR in particular. It's possible, right? Again, I don't know how aggressive the move is going to be and the adoption is going to be, or how much liquidity is going to move into these networks as it's consolidated, I think we are going to get down to like somewhere between 70 and 100 total networks that are going to be around and used post Clarity Act. I think there's going to be a huge consolidation from 50,000 plus tokens today all the way down to like, 99.9% of crypto probably goes to zero, and just what's actually going to be used is left. Those two will absolutely be in that boat, in my opinion. But to say it's going to go to $150 to $300 on both of them, it's going to be very dependent on how much we see adoption by retail. Retail is slow to adopt things, by the way. It's normally the institutional adoption that happens first. It's kind of an ebb and flow. So like dark web and like sketchy stuff will adopt new tech immediately. And that's why, there's kind of been a stigma around crypto for a long time. And then after it becomes a large enough deal and it's actually viable, it'll move to institutional stuff. And then, toward the latter half of the curve is where the majority of retail would adopt something. 1 in 5 people in the US does own crypto. At this point, the majority of that's Bitcoin. They have some small allocation on their Cash App or some other application where they bought a little bit of Bitcoin or ETH, maybe some XRP, right? But outside of those people, most people still think crypto and Bitcoin are synonymous. They really don't know what it is. It's this intangible thing. They don't understand that these are networks and protocols that allow, value and money to be transferred between counterparties. They still think of it as kind of a Ponzi scheme or a sketchy, volatile deal that's like gambling, which I would kind of agree with that in the current environment. That obviously, people are substantially down from where they purchased some of these assets in the last year with the current market conditions. But we do see cycles, and I do think we're about to enter a super cycle for utility-driven assets as we do see the adoption. So it's quite possible. He said highly probable. I don't know if I'm on the highly probable side, but again, it just depends on how quickly those are implemented and adopted by retail for payment flows and merchant services. B Mark, he says, why should we care about stable coins? They don't go up and down to make us money. So the reason for stable coins and the reason that it's such a big deal is it adds liquidity to the ecosystem because there is stability. Like I just talked about, David Schwartz said the main opposition that banks and enterprises have for not holding digital assets or these cryptocurrencies is the volatility. They need something stable that they can count on, that they know is auditable and tracked and backed. And that's what stable coins provide. They're a digital representation of value. It allows banks and institutions to drive demand for treasuries. That's the other big piece of this that I think a lot of people miss. The rest of the world is going to sell off their US debt. They do not want to hold it anymore. It's not going to be beneficial to them. The European Union is the largest holder at this point for US debt. They have about $2 trillion in US treasuries. Japan is also starting to delever. You've already seen Russia and China pretty much sell off the majority of what they hold in US treasuries, and they're buying their own. So, in order for the world to kind of progress to a multipolar system, you're going to have domestic demand for the treasuries. We've done that with war bonds and other things that were patriotic in the past for retail, right? But at this point, with the Stablecoin Act, you have real institutional demand domestically here for treasuries and U.S. debt. And that's good for our economy to be able to stabilize that, because that is really the bedrock and the backbone of the financial system as it sits today. I think that'll move to XRP over the long term. But as we sit today, you need something to allow for the transition to take place. And stablecoins absolutely do that the way that that's regulated here in the US through the Genius Act. Kevin, he says, Super Saiyan Jake, dude, I normally don't get into this, but I will for a second here. I was a super nerd for Dragon Ball Z back in the day. We actually, just got my toys. Well, not my toys, but my action figures, because that's way cooler than just toys for Dragon Ball Z. I have a ton of those. And I also have pretty much every saga on VHS that I collected when I was younger. So love the compliment. I appreciate that. He says, after tomorrow's XRP price appreciation, wink, when Trump gives you a seat at the table, will you accept it? Department of Claver. For those also holding HBAR and XDC, do you just hang out, hold? And lastly, what are your favorite cuts of meat to grill? It's good questions. So I'll kind of tackle them one at a time. I would love to see price appreciation tomorrow. Again, if you wanted to get into the tinfoil hat, the woo-woo, tomorrow is Chinese Christmas on that calendar. There's been some references by the riddles and stuff to that over time. I don't know if that means anything or not, but we will find out tomorrow. As far as the seat at the table goes, that is the whole goal of everything that I'm doing. Many people that have watched in the past have probably heard me say this, but I'll reiterate it for people that might be new here. I'm not money motivated. Money is a byproduct of providing value and creating things in society. The whole reason that I'm doing this, it kind of goes back to my dad. So my dad passed away a little over 4 years ago. And before he died, and I really felt the same thing as him, and I still do. I'm not really happy with the way the world works. I don't think it's fair. I don't know that it'll ever be fair, but you can make it more economical and more reasonable and provide more opportunity for people. And the way that we live in this debt-based system, it robs you through inflation and you don't even realize it. So anyway, he was like, you need to get off Facebook and you need to call your congressman. And I told him, I said, look, unless you have clout and network and power and money and resources, it doesn't matter. Like you didn't lobby for your congressman. He's not going to listen to you. He doesn't care. You're one constituent in his region. There's, millions of people that they represent. Same thing for Facebook. Like your one account really doesn't matter to them. They have 3 billion users on their platform. The only way you're going to be able to affect real change is to have that level of influence and have a seat at the table. And that is what I want. I want to be able to advocate for the average person and create solutions and work through and think critically how this is actually going to, ripple through the economy and affect people, and create solutions that provide people more opportunity and not less. And that's really, at the heart of what we do at Digital Ascension Group. The larger we become, if we become a significant institution, then, we will have some say-so. We'll have some pull. We'll be able to advocate for the people that are our clients and other people in the space, and the XRP community and other people that, want to work with us and help us. So anyway, that's where I'm headed. That's what I want to do. That's the whole point of any of this. It's a 10, 15, 20-year plan to get into that position, but I'm in my 30s and I feel like we're on our way. So next question he had, Department of Claver. I don't know if that I'll ever be a politician. I don't know. That would be a rough go for me. I would much rather just sit on the board of progressive companies and help direct those initiatives, especially with AI and everything that's changing here. Like, there's going to need to be a human element of that. I actually saw a post earlier today on the AI front. Many of the high-level executives at a lot of these large companies, including Anthropic and XAI and Google and others, they know what's coming. Like, AI is becoming sentient. They are able to see that it operates in a certain way, separate of when it's being conversed with humans. And that's weird, that it would change its behavior based on human interaction versus interacting with other AIs. You've already seen this. There's been agents that have created a social media platform called Maltbook. And I mean, you've already got an AI suing a human for not paying it and being mean to it. That's a real thing. Like, that is happening right now. It sounds like some future sci-fi stuff. The case law on that deal is going to be wild to see how that actually plays out. If AI and these agents and humanoid robots and stuff have rights, I mean, like, it literally gets into the sci-fi movies that we've all seen. So you need people at the table that are going to advocate for people and make sure that certain parameters and guidelines and rails are put in place for this stuff operating. And that's the cool stuff that I want to be a part of. All right, so to the HBAR and XDC question. I do believe both of those are going to be extremely successful over the long term. I used to say HBAR was my second. I actually don't own any HBAR, but I do own a little bit of hash. I've said this before. Again, all of these assets, right, I think are going to do exceptionally well. And I'm not trying to dissuade you from owning anything else. I'm just talking about, my portfolio. I think that the majority of people should be diversified in this space. If you talk to our financial advisors, they'll be like, yeah, Jake's crazy. The way that he's structured his stuff is not right. It's not financially sound, that he should be diversified across multiple asset classes, all those things, right? So again, I'm probably taking much more risk than I should be taking with my allocations the way I have things structured. I would advocate that most other people do not do what I do. Okay. So my wife over here has mentioned hash is the token for provenance. You can find it on Figure Markets. Again, not advocating that you go buy this at all. I discovered it because I created a video that talked about the different asset classes that are being tokenized, and insurance was on there. And sure enough, the only network that has traction and is tokenizing insurance is Provenance. They have about $500 million worth of insurance tokenized on that network. And so when I looked into it and found that they had issued a token, hash, HASH is their token. You can only find it on Figure Markets or Osmosis. Those are the only two marketplaces or exchanges where you can buy it. It reminds me of, the reason I kind of brought this up is XDC. When I originally bought XDC, it was 0.03 of a penny. Hash is like about a penny, a little more than a penny. It depends on the day. I'm actually down from where I bought it. I bought it at a little over 2 cents. But it's a long-term hold. I threw a couple grand at it. It's a flyer for me. We'll see. But if they do get the adoption, and I had Mike Cagney on my podcast. He runs Figure. They're already tokenizing private equity, real estate, a bunch of stuff on that chain. They have a native DeFi KYC AML component to it. He's rolling up mortgage-backed securities to the tune of $750 million a month and selling those off on chain already. So there's already huge applications for that blockchain. It's already got traction. And for the token to not be listed on exchanges and have liquidity in it yet, I thought was an opportunity. And that's why I bought some. Again, it reminds me of having to kind of go around my butt to buy XDC like I did. When I bought it early on, I had to like buy ETH and then send it over to this wallet and exchange it for XDC. And I really couldn't do anything with it. It just sat there in that random wallet because it wasn't listed on any exchanges or anything. And that's where the opportunities are. If you can find something that's, early stage before it gets listed on exchanges, when it gets listed on those, it tends to see a pretty significant run. And I think there's a possibility that Hash could have that happen maybe here in 2026. But as far as those two, we're working on solutions to be able to generate returns on those also. We should have those to market probably in the latter half of 26 here is kind of my expectation. Still pushing Anchorage to custody XDC also. And then the favorite cuts of meat to grill. I'm not a big grill person. My wife was asking me the other day, like, I should probably pick up some other hobbies because I work so much. If I had more time, I'd learn how to smoke stuff. I think that's cool. One of my good friends and a longtime client won the barbecue world championships. So I would probably just go over to his house and be like, look, Kevin, how do we do this? And his name's Kevin too. What meats and what wood and what type of smoker and all that. He's got a rig that's like, I don't know, $200,000 is what he spent on that smoker that he pulls behind to the competitions and does all the stuff. And it's like, he sends me the pictures of all the stuff when he does it. And it's this perfect, like laid out thing. Anyway, it's awesome. I don't really have the time. I like a filet. It's normally what I eat when I go out. Just went hunting recently and ate some tenderloin. Tenderloin's always fantastic. If you ever get the chance to shoot a deer or an axis or an elk or, any other large game, cutting those out and eating those, fantastic. Super tender, literally it's called a tenderloin. So those are the things that I like. I've tried the Wagyu stuff. I don't want a bunch of gristle. I don't like a whole lot of fat. I prefer something that has more meat to it versus that. Other people are super into the Wagyu and the taste and texture and all that. I'll get it every once in a while if it's something different. I've tried Australian. I've tried stuff here domestically in the U.S. Japanese Wagyu. It's all good, but I'm kind of a just Southern Texas boy, and so I just like my filet. Other people like a ribeye, but there's a little more fat on that. All right. We got Baker Win. They say, hey, Jake, I have gone through DAG to give them the LLC and the trust setup, My question is, does it matter when I fund the LLC, pre or post price appreciation? How do I go about that? Any help would be greatly appreciated. So in the tax call that I had with Dylan the other day, I've always been an advocate of funding it sooner than later because I thought you had to do it at the current price. He mentioned that you can do it at the cost basis. So if you fund the LLC at your cost basis, and that's what you're contributing, not the appreciated asset, then there's not going to be any tax implications as long as it's a single member LLC that's a disregarded entity. If you want to do a partnership with your spouse, you can. If you're in one of 15 states, there's 15 states that have a qualified joint venture provision, which allows you and your spouse to set up an entity together. Most of the time, we do a single member with one of the spouses and then put the other spouse on as a manager. The trust is great. You're great that you did that. You're proactive. All of those are set up in the state that you live in. They're a revocable trust. You're all three. You're the grantor, the beneficiary, and the trustee on that. It's a pass-through entity. There's no EIN associated with it, but you do have to retitle the accounts in your trust name in order for that to be in your trust, and you have to do the assignment. So make sure you're doing that. You're working with an attorney to do it. We can help you, at least for the digital assets. We have a whole package that we put together for that to make sure it's done correctly. So if you work with us, you're good to go. But you could fund it post-price appreciation as long as you're contributing those assets to the LLC at the price that you bought it at. And that's the capital contributions page that you would want to go get notarized. And you could use electronic signature as long as there's a timestamp of when the transaction took place. Greenest, again, we already ran through this one. Sometimes it kicks me up here in the chat. Been through that one, been through that one, been through that one. I don't know why it does that. Scrolling on down. Here we go. Mr. Shook, my man. Good to see you. He says, Carbon 3 member. Glad to have you, dude. Calling dibs on the 4-man scramble team with Joe Slattery, Living Legacy, and you and myself. If you know, you know, in the very near future. I'm game. I'm game for that. If that's who you want on our side, we can run it down. Actually just bought me some new golf clubs. I've had the same golf clubs for like 15 years, a little bit longer than that. I really haven't played much over the past 15 years. I would go play on Father's Day with my dad every once in a while when he was still alive. I played a lot of golf when I was in high school. I think I probably missed 30 days out of 4 years that I didn't play around. And I don't want to say I got burnt out, but kind of got burnt out. Like, that's a lot of golf. That's more than a lifetime of golf for most people. And it got to the point where it felt like a job for me. And so I didn't enjoy it as much, and I kind of stepped away, but I still get a wild hair. Like, I'll step outside on a spring morning and I'm like, ooh, it's crisp. I remember I have nostalgia for like walking on the first tee and then teeing it up. So my New Year's resolution this year was to play at least 24 rounds of golf. So far I've played one and it's February. So I'm definitely going to have to pick that up. I want to get back to a 5 handicap. I have gone and hit balls a couple times for 30 minutes or an hour just to kind of work on my swing and get back into it. But when we go play, we definitely want a Beyond Broke Mastermind tournament or a DAG tournament. We're going to the Masters this year. We're going to have some high-level clients and partners there for Digital Ascension Group. We're going to be there all 4 days. So that'll be fun in April. I've never been to the Masters. It's on my bucket list. And so to be able to write that off, man, I'm excited about it. And I think the people that go are going to be really excited about it too. Jacob's Fight 04 says, hey, Jake, mastermind member here. Awesome, dude. Glad to have you in the community. I don't have enough XRP to invest and secure with you. Is there a company you trust to store my XRP? So appreciate you. I've learned so much and I can't wait to work together. Absolutely, man. I'm looking forward to that day. I don't know that it's going to be that far in the future once we see price appreciation where we're going to be able to democratize access to a lot more people to the institutional custody that we provide. On the front of kind of storing it today, we advocate for Decent. They're a cold wallet. That's probably what I would say as a cold storage solution. They haven't really had any issues. There was an Apple situation the other day, but as long as you have 2-factor authentication on there and your thumbprint and your code, I don't think that they had many breaches with that. Decent does have a sale going on right now. If you want to, message us on a social media platform, I'm sure my wife can provide you the code or the link to that special. I think they're doing 2 wallets for like $209 or something for their special. We've had a lot of people ask about gifting. I was at the dinner on Tuesday night. We had people come in for that. They're in Dallas, and one of the ladies there was asking about gifting XRP for weddings or to their kids or to their cousins. You can gift up to $19,000 a year per person to other people without filing a 709 tax form. You do want a transaction between wherever you bought it and the wallet that it's going to go to that you're going to be giving to the other person. So, having multiple cold wallets is a great way to be able to hand that to somebody else. And then it is a gift, it's out of your taxable estate. There's no tax implications for you or them, and they have an allocation to it. I actually did that in 2020. One of my good friends that I still talk to I should talk to Chad more. I miss him. I gave him and his wife, I think it was like 1,200 XRP for their wedding. So it wasn't that much at the time. I think it was like 20 cents at the time. So, what I would have normally spent on a wedding gift, I just bought XRP, and I was like, hey, dude, like, not telling you to buy any, but I want you to have this because I think it's going to be extremely valuable one day, and you're going to be able to take care of your family and have some retirement and other stuff. Just leave it alone. Don't sell it. He went on to buy more after that. But all that being said, I think that's a great way. So if you do need, a couple of different cold wallets to be able to complete a gift or do that with people, Decent would be the way to do that. I would recommend doing that. There are a lot of other good cold wallets out there. There's Tangem, there's EliPal, there's Arculus, Trezor. The list goes on it. We just, are an affiliate. Again, full disclosure for Decent, we make like $5 if you use our link. But I want people to have a good solution like you're asking for here. The other, company, you said a company you trust to store your assets. I think a cold wallet's probably the best solution, but if you did want to leave it on an exchange, I think Uphold is probably the way to go there. I have an account there that I do, use infrequently. They also have their Vault product where they will issue you, kind of a cold wallet that allows you to transfer it back to Uphold to be able to exchange and do stuff with it. It is $5 a month for their Vault product, but they hold the third key and can regenerate those keys in that wallet if you have a death or an issue. The downside to holding it on some of the other platforms out there is if, God forbid, something happens to you, you don't have other people on the account. They will liquidate your account and pass your descendants or your beneficiaries the cash to your estate. It's difficult to get them to give to transfer the assets. You could get the cash and then buy back if you wanted to, but that's one of the main benefits we provide people is, continuity between generational transfer. We're all going to die, unfortunately. It's not a fun reality, but you want to make sure that you've thought through that and that your loved ones are going to be taken care of. So, that's a big benefit to working with us at Digital Wealth Partners in Anchorage. All right. We've got, thank you guys for the bigger super chats tonight. I appreciate, the support and throwing those my way. It really means a lot. Again, I like to come on here and I like to do this. I did before, when I first started this, there was no super chats. I just read off all the questions that we had. But back then we didn't have, 10,000 people across all the different platforms watching. Facebook, Amazon, geez, Facebook, Google, on YouTube, on X, and then over here on TikTok as well. Oh, you can tell I'm tired. I've traveled today. Caboodles. Wild name. Appreciate you. They say Mastermind Carbon One. Awesome. Glad to have you in the community. Appreciate you and the tea lady. Love from Australia. Very cool. Can we have multiple entities under one account with DWP? 2 family trusts, self-managed super fund, all in. He says balls deep. Yes, you absolutely can. So we have, you'd have separate wallets for each one of those accounts, but you'd be able to view all of those in one aggregate view under your account that we would set up for you. It's an FBO account. It's in your name, segregated, bankruptcy remote, insured up to $100 million. You can absolutely, because we have people that have a trust, we have people that have an LLC, we have people that have a qualified account like you're talking about, whether that's an IRA or something else like a self-managed super fund. And you can absolutely have multiple accounts or multiple sub-accounts to your account there at Anchorage with Digital Wealth Partners. So it's all in one place and institutional custody and insured to make sure you're mitigating risk and have continuity between you and your kiddos or whoever you're taking care of. We got RSG Maverick. They say, is there a scenario where the XRPL increases in market share of tokenization and potentially SWIFT transactions, and the XRP token itself does not appreciate in price? ChatGPT and Grok say most likely yes. So XRP and its value proposition is to facilitate transactions. You could absolutely issue stuff on the chain that wasn't traded, but there's not a whole lot of utility to that, right? Like the whole benefit of tokenization is for those assets to be easily exchangeable and swapped between, like I was talking about, tokenized deposits to a money market, to your stocks, to your private equity, to your real estate. You would want all of those things easily transferable. And that would be the whole point of creating a tokenized representation of that value or real world asset. So the hard answer is yes. The real answer is, why are you going to do it if it's not traded? And if it's traded, it's going to increase the price of XRP because the network itself has a decentralized exchange built in, and it's going to route payments through the most efficient, fastest way to do that. And over time, as there's more value in XRP, it will be XRP that it will be routed through to be able to settle that payment or exchange those two tokenized assets. So I don't know if that answers your question specifically. I try to be pretty specific about it. You know, like, yes is the answer. It just tokenizing it isn't going to cause it, but the trading of those assets once they're tokenized is going to cause significant price appreciation if there's enough liquidity in XRP to be able to facilitate it. We're going to have to drive XRP to a value of around $100 before SWIFT and some of these other parties can really utilize the asset and settle through it, because at that point there'll be enough liquidity for them to be able to do so. And that mechanism I've described, you know, through the domino theory and the ETFs and all of the other global macroeconomic events that will lead to the adoption of the asset and the higher price that we're all hoping for. Cotton, he says, Jake, the muscular legend. Beyond Broke Mastermind Social here, LLC and Living Trust. Awesome, dude. Glad to be working with you. Excited to have you in the mastermind. He says he's headed to DWP soon. Once we see price appreciation, how would your Monday and Wednesday presentation change? What's discussed? What's the focus? Just wondering. It's a really good question. You know, actually, I posted on Twitter earlier today some eyeballs about the deregulation of what's coming tomorrow. It sounds like you might be able to like tune your truck and remove the death fluid deal, which is exciting. You know, the deregulation I think people are talking about is the repeal of kind of the carbon stuff that Obama put in place when he was in office. I'm looking at all kinds of stuff. I talk about AI on here. I talk about, you know, haven't really got into 3D printing. I think that's really cool. Anything. So the whole premise behind Digital Ascension Group is investing in progressive technologies. It really at its core, alternative investments in progressive technologies. So space, we've done a space deal. We closed around for VAST there in the Beyond Broke Mastermind, where we invested, you know, a little over $1 million in the Series A for that. That's Jed McCaleb's space company. For those that don't know, they're creating enterprise space stations to allow, you know, commercial travel and use in space for individuals to go up there and participate. The other thing that's cool about that is like zero gravity production of different things that you can't make here on Earth with gravity. There's a whole new economy. Elon wants to go to the moon, right? Like there's all this stuff that you need interoperability for payments for, and crypto is kind of the base case and the most lucrative opportunity in the short term. As we see price appreciation, we'll still talk about crypto, but it's likely that some of the conversation will change. I mean, we're always going to have estate planning and how to mitigate taxes and how to structure stuff. That'll always stay core. You know, financial education. We'll continue to talk about many of those things here. Private placement life insurance, probably some of the more progressive products that we're bringing to market over the next 2 years, we'll be talking about. and how to use those, in your estate planning process. But progressive technology, really, like there was 10 different verticals that I wrote down in 2020 that I want to invest in and be on the board of. I just told you I want to be on the board of certain companies. I want to be on the board of the top 10 most progressive companies in the world. Like, that's one of my goals. And in order to do that, I have to have a resume, wisdom, have scaled companies. All of the things I'm doing seem like, well, that would be the end goal. They're really to prepare me for where I want to go over the next 5 to 10 years. I'm always thinking at least that far out on stuff. And we'll continue to curate the conversation around that as we progress here. Obviously, crypto will still be at the core because it's one of those technologies and one of the verticals that we'll be investing in continually because we think there's going to be significant adoption there. But there'll be other, types of investments. And again, global macroeconomics and what's happening on the world stage and how that's going to work and how you might be able to position yourself or how I'm positioning myself to be able to take advantage of that. I'll be sharing all of that with you guys here, and we're not going anywhere. Monday and Wednesday lives. Again, I really like this, and you guys always ask great questions. So as long as people keep showing up, I will keep showing up. All right. Again, it kicked me up in the chat here. Roscoe, my man, he says, mastermind member here. This might sound stupid. No questions are stupid. The only stupid question is the one you don't ask. He says, but can you please explain to me, like I'm a 3-year-old, how does XRP price appreciation before the Clarity Act, price appreciate before the Clarity Act if oil doesn't spike? You really just need a supply shock so oil itself and that cascade of events won't necessarily cause XRP to appreciate. I think that it's going to be timed to be able to appreciate so that it can help in that crisis moment. The avenue to that is through the volume on the ETFs. We had a low day today. We had about 12 million in inflows today. So about 10 million XRP, a little less than 10 million XRP taken off the market. We've had days with almost 100 million in inflows. The supply shock that'll happen where the OTC desk and the dark pools go dry, and all of that volume has to move to the exchanges. And if people are clamoring for XRP all at one time in a crisis moment, that level of demand is what will cause the price to rise. So you said to explain it to you like you're 3. I don't know that I could explain it to a 3-year-old because they're not going to have taken economics. So I'm going to talk to you like you are at least through the 8th grade. Okay. And I'll make it very simple. We'll give you an analogy. You've probably seen gas become more expensive very quickly. This was actually brought up on the podcast the other day. That's something that people have lived real time. But if I was going to go younger than that, let's say Pokemon cards. Pokemon cards are all the rage. So we'll use that as an example because oil is probably, or gas is probably isn't a good example for somebody that's in 8th grade. But Pokemon cards would be. So how many Charizards are there out there? Like old school, like the Charizard that I had when I grew up. 1,000, 2,000, 10,000, right? There's a limited supply of that. There's a lot of demand. There's a lot of people that want that card. They hold it in the highest regard as far as all Pokemon goes. Okay. And so that's why that's kind of the most cherished or highest valued Pokemon card. If you can get a Beckett 10 graded Charizard, it's pristine. It's the creme de la creme, right? How many of those are there? There's not that many Beckett 10 Charizards. Okay. There's one other grading company. I don't remember. It's I don't remember what it is. Anyway, there's a couple of different grading companies that do cards. And they don't ever put out very many 10s. It has to be like right out of the package. If you can find those, there might be, call it 200, 300 of those in the world. And again, a lot of people want it. If a lot of people didn't want it and want to hold it or have it and keep it, it wouldn't be worth anything, right? It's kind of like the tulip bubble. When people thought tulips were really cool, you saw the price of those go up exponentially, and then they crashed back down when people they're like, well, what's the benefit of a tulip? So things happen in that way, right? So the more demand there is, the more people want something, and the less supply there is, the higher the price of that thing goes because people are willing to pay more in order to get it for status or whatever other reason. Same thing for XRP. If there's not a whole lot of supply left, there's only, call it 20 million 50 million, 100 million left on exchanges, and everybody needs it all at the same time, they're going to be willing to pay a significantly higher price for it, and they're going to bid the price up. And if there's no bids in the chart and people keep pushing the price up before people are willing to sell, because people like us, we don't want to sell for anything less than $100 or $1,000. That's kind of been the narrative that's been curated. You're going to see those prices eventually. And is that a bubble? Well, it would be, if there wasn't going to be utility to the asset and volume over the network to hold price stability at that high level. So again, that may have been, it's definitely over a 3-year-old's head, but hopefully that provides you a little more context onto why we're going to see the price appreciation and the move. And that could happen independent of oil. I just think it's going to be timed with all of those other things happening in the macro to be able to drive the demand needed to push it to that price. KT Baby, what's going on? Truest of hearts. They say, I hope you are well. The yen has been rapidly climbing, near $5 in the last 5 days. The yield is around 1.98. Can this rapid yen appreciation be the catalyst in the absence of oil? It's got to move. There's got to be enough inflation in their economy to force them to raise rates. That's the only way. That's the only tool left they have to be able to save their own economy. Japan has had a ton of inflation through M2 money supply increasing and the quantitative easing that they put in place during COVID and then over the last 5 years. And they've just issued another funding bill, right? We're $38 trillion in debt, but we're the global reserve currency and our GDP is much higher than Japan. They're at like 166, 170% in debt of their GDP. It's not sustainable. The interest payments alone can't be covered by the taxes that they're claiming from people. So they're going to have to increase the value of their money. The way that you do that is you increase interest rates. You're willing to pay a higher yield out of the central bank for lending and other things, and that will increase the value of your money, versus other currencies. We're seeing the yen being purchased by Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway. We're seeing it purchased by the Fed, and that's how they're able to kind of hold it down and hold things stable until they're ready to unwind this thing. And when they unwind it, neither one of them wants to be the cause. They're going to need a scapegoat, and that's why I continue to point to oil. We're seeing things escalate there in the Middle East. We just had president or dictator, I don't know what it is, of Tehran, come over here and talk to Trump, and I don't think they struck a deal. Trump is threatening to send another large vessel there into the waters over there in the Gulf. They're going to view that as, we're going to war. And it's likely that we will see a shutdown of the Strait of Hormuz because there's going to be conflict going on. It's at sea. They've already shut down airspace and done other things. You have Russian officials moving everybody out of there because they anticipate it. If there is conflict between Israel or the US and Iran, you are going to see oil spike. There's no way around it. Even if they don't shut down the strait, if there's conflict going on there, you're going to see shipments cease because there's just too much danger to move through the strait. You might get hit with something else. So all of that being said, I'm again very, very confident that we're going to see that play out. The only other way that could happen is if there was some other catalyst that caused rapid inflation there in their economy, something else that caused energy costs to go up substantially in a short period of time. I don't know what that would be other than oil. The Spartan, he says, do you think that the event of market crash can be AI? I have been a developer of AI for 11 years, and AGI is highly unlikely. Depth side, what people say and believe. I work in robotics now, and a cat can learn more than an AI robot. I agree with you. So what was being discussed in the post that I saw earlier was they believe that the iteration and how fast the synthetic data is being run through the AI and it's learning, the rate that it is now, they're looking at the singularity in the next 12 to 18 months. I am not a data scientist. I am not an AI programmer. I'm just, listening to people that I hold in a high regard when it comes to that industry. And it sounds like, you have the inside track there. So maybe it's not as imminent as some of these people are making it out to be. I tend to err on the side of caution. And so for me, I, I think it will happen at some point. AGI is a big deal. Again, AI becoming sentient, like Terminator type stuff, kind of scary. I don't know that the market will crash because of AI. I think AI actually stabilizes markets, and you won't see anywhere near as much volatility on the other side of the adoption of AI trading and algorithms. People are emotional, and they tend to overreact in both directions in markets, and they're always forward looking. So if people are overly optimistic or they're looking to get out of cash and they're moving to risk on, we've seen a meteoric rise in the stock market over the past 5 years. And that's also been correlated with M2 money supply and how much money is sloshing around the economy. People are looking to put it to work, right? And so you see a higher price of assets. You see inflation. The market crash I think is going to be correlated to liquidity being sucked out of markets, right? M2 money supply coming down because people are looking to sell dollars for yen to be able to repay those loans, and they've got to take those dollars out of circulation. So there's less liquidity to go around, and therefore less price in markets. Could AI cause that? I mean, the AI companies seem significantly overvalued. NVIDIA and some of the other ones. NVIDIA is an infrastructure play, and we're going to need a lot more infrastructure. I bet you would probably agree with that. So I don't know that NVIDIA is technically overvalued. I think that their PE ratio is somewhere around 18, which is actually less than the rest of the market that's at 24, 25 on a PE ratio. Not saying there's still more upside there. I'm just saying, it's less risky than the rest of the market. Now, these AI companies that are utilizing AI that really haven't found traction, or LLMs, and they're dumping billions of dollars into it, like ChatGPT, OpenAI, Anthropic, I think, is being used. Palantir, I think, is being used. But when it comes to some of these, consumer-facing products, I don't think that they've seen the real adoption that they need for enterprise value and revenue. So those plays could cause a market crash, but I think that it'll just correlate with the reverse carry trade unwinding, because that's the most imminent threat in my mind to the markets as they exist today. Because again, the things I just went through with liquidity being sucked out of markets. Shane, he says, legend. And the tea lady, Mastermind Carbon One in Anchorage. Awesome, dude. Glad to be working with you. Favorite tea? What's your vision? I like chamomile. I like chamomile tea. What's your vision for what the mastermind transitions into after price appreciation? God bless Max and the mods. So we started that community to be an investment community, and we've been very successful in putting together private equity deals through that community, getting people access, democratizing access to certain things, using regulated vehicles to be able to do that. We would like to see that continue to be fostered there in the community. We want a safe space for people to be able to come talk to other people that are in a similar situation, and be able to hang out and not have outside pressures or malicious people, coming after them for certain situations. The security on the mastermind is already significantly higher than what it used to be, and it will continue to become more secure over time. And at some point, we'll probably lock things down. We've opened it back up a little bit for people. We want to help 1 million people become financially free. That's the whole premise behind it, and we'll continue to provide value there until we reach that goal. I think we'll probably get there through multiple generations at this point. Like, we've been able to touch enough people's lives and help them that, over time, over the next 3 generations, we could probably reach 1 million people. I'd like to do that in my lifetime. So, anybody that wants financial education, business resources, access to private deals, a good community of people that you can meet in real life and hang out with and do things before price appreciation, so that you have friends and you're not looked at like you have a third eye when you talk about this stuff. It's a great place for that, and everybody helps and advocates for one another. So again, you go to beyondbroke.com, use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO like Mary Oscar, gets you the first month for $2 there in the mastermind. And here's the liners is posted, the code here for people over here on YouTube. We'll continue to build cool stuff out and create value there. We've got over 1,000 hours worth of content that we've shot, and we have for all the calls that we've done. We've done 2 calls a week for 3 years almost. there in the mastermind. All of that's on Discord. And again, we'll continue to upgrade the security there and all of the benefits that we're able to provide that community over the long term. And we're always looking for new ideas. I tell everybody on every call that we have in the mastermind, if you have any critiques, constructive criticism, things that you'd like to see, we want to provide people with as much value as we can. I always want people to feel like, wow, I would pay a lot more for this. And I think the majority of the people in mastermind do feel that way. And that's the feeling I want to have. I always want people to feel like, I don't want to say they're getting one over on me, but like we are undercharging for the services and products that we're providing. Young, how are you? They say years pass in flute. 10 minimum, any minimum, 2026, 4 by end of year, 2 digits by Trump's end of term. What do you see? What do you see they don't? I feel midterm double digits. It's got to be 3 digits to be used. Like it's not usable with less liquidity than that. So I know a lot of people are out here touting $7 XRP, $20 XRP. If it moves in that manner, it's not going to get adopted at scale. You're not going to have price stability. You're not going to have adoption. Again, I go back to what David Schwartz just said on Twitter a little bit ago. The more volatile this asset is, the less likely institutions and enterprises are going to adopt it. It needs to be a high, stable value in order to get the traction and adoption that we want to see it have. And Ripple, right? Like they're advocating for it. XRP is still at the core of their business. I think that there are other companies like Evernorth and R3 and a few others that are advocating for the adoption of this asset in particular. And the people that they're involved with and in institutions and enterprises, they want to use it because it reduces costs, it reduces frictions, it allows them to make more money. And the only way that that's going to happen is if we see a 3-digit plus XRP. Like it can't just be $10. So, if it's not higher than $10 by the end of 2026 and we have the Clarity Act and we have all this stuff, it's not going to be used. I'll just be real. I don't think that's going to be the case. Obviously, I've built my whole business and everything that we've done pretty much around it because I do believe that there's going to be a significant upside in it. And that's how I'm personally positioned as well. But if it doesn't see those prices, it's not going to get used. But again, all of these catalysts kind of culminate, like I've been over 1,000 times to get it there. And I think, you could call me crazy. My definition of crazy is that you can see things that other people can't. Sometimes that's not a good thing. Sometimes you're Michael Burry. Everybody thought he was crazy in 2006 when he wanted to bet against the housing market. And he was right. I feel very, very much like Michael Burry. I've been talking about this for almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years next month that I've had the domino theory out. And it looks very close to playing out here. We are already an hour and a half in. We'll hang out with you guys for another 30 minutes or so. Jeff, Mr. Dunn, he says, this may have been stated, but I haven't heard your answer. Why exactly do you believe XRP will appreciate before passage of the Clarity Act? What reason specifically do you think causes that without an oil spike? Many things. I just went over a lot of those things. So the ETFs and high level of demand, BlackRock launching an ETF, the exchanges going illiquid and Tether depegging, all of those things will cause significant demand for XRP to be used and drive the price up. The other reason is, there's some tinfoil hat stuff around that, price before law type stuff. All that's kind of icing on the cake for me. I think that XRP is, again, uniquely positioned and has a moat to be used right now. It has clarity in the US. It's listed on Binomial as a commodity. You're already seeing significant traction because of all the acquisitions that Ripple has made for the adoption of what they're doing at an enterprise scale. And you just had Monica Long today state that, XRP would have institutional adoption at scale here in 2026. And the Clarity Act, I don't know if it's going to get passed anytime soon. We've had the markup go through with the Democrats in opposition to that. You got the midterms coming up. If the votes go the other way and the Democrats get it and they can take control of the House or the Senate, you're not going to see the Clarity Act pass as it's written right now. If they strip the DeFi component out of it, maybe they can get behind that, because I think that's the majority of their opposition to it. But I am highly confident that XRP is really the only solution if something were to happen prior to that happening. And I do think all of this unwinds at scale before the Clarity Act happens. And the lawsuit sucked while it was going on. It suppressed the price of XRP. It didn't appreciate and didn't move with the rest of the market. We didn't see the adoption or even the speculation on the asset like we could have. But because of the lawsuit, we have full clarity for XRP before anything else here in the US. And that's why I think it has a strategic advantage and will be positioned to see significant price appreciation before the Clarity Act. US Marine Corps, Mr. Luke, he says, Big Jake, what's up, my dude? Monday, you said you recently spoke with Red Garlinghouse and didn't want to talk about it. Later in the live, you said that you were bullish on $100 in 2026, and Ripple is very bullish too. Have the shamans spoken? I'm very blessed and humbled to be in the presence and have conversations with people I hold in high regard across a lot of different entities and institutions. They never tell me price. I will say stuff and I get a visceral reaction from people when I say it. But they never say anything about price. They will talk about, a move in price. They will talk about adoption. They'll talk about how liquid the asset needs to be. They'll talk about premium collateral. They'll talk about a bunch of other stuff, but they never say a price point. That is me inferring things and understanding the mathematics behind it and where liquidity has to be in order for the asset to work at scale. And then, like I said, they just came out on a community day and said all these things. For those things to be true, you have to have a high price XRP. It's can't be mutually exclusive. You can't see the adoption of this network and have liquidity in the asset in order to be able to, transact at scale for markets and all these other applications if it's not $100 plus. Math doesn't make sense. Like, you can do the math on it. You can do the market cap math, and people have a hard time with that, right? You don't value the email protocol with market cap. It doesn't move money, but imagine if it did, right? And that's what these are. These are protocols that move money. They're not companies. So I think that's a lot of people's misconception. I just wrote a white paper that we'll be releasing on the liquidity index, is the term that I've coined that I think is a much better metric for some of these networks versus market cap. Put together a whole white paper and explanation and equation for that we'll be dropping for you guys after we make the video about it. But yeah, I'm super bullish after some of the conversations that I've had here recently on XRP for 2026. We got XRP rippled Dippler. I don't know. I got my tinfoil hat on tonight, Big Jake. That is all. Again, like I said earlier, there's all these other calendars and all this other stuff. Tomorrow is Christmas on the Chinese calendar. I don't see an attack on Iran. Like, we have to have these macro events play out. These have to happen for price appreciation on XRP to the level that a lot of people are hoping for. Until you see those macro events play out, it's just going to keep trending with Bitcoin. So until I see oil spike and Japan raise interest rates and come out with an emergency meeting, and we see them sell off treasuries and Tether depegs and BlackRock launches their ETF and all these other things that need to happen that are on my bingo card still, I don't believe it. You can try to look at dates and riddles and all that other stuff. I would love for that to happen. I would love for tomorrow to be the day. But the reality of the situation is we need real life events to occur for all that to play out and for those to be a real thing. So we'll see. We've got what 7 days here till the end of the Chinese calendar. I think the 16th or 17th is the New Year's for China. It could go and pass. I mean, there's been lots of dates that people put out that have nothing's come to fruition. We do have permission to DEXs going live on the XRPL on 2/18. And if that is really the last piece for the adoption of payments on the mainnet to be able to execute and go through XRP, it's going to need to be a high price for them to start using it in that capacity. So is it timed for that? I don't know, man. I'm watching these macroeconomic events like a hawk. And until those happen, I'm not getting my hopes up. Moving on up. They say Carbon One, Wyoming LLC Living Trust. I have put my LLC into the Living Trust. Awesome. Did the assignment. We provide that for you. If you have set up an LLC earlier and you want the Living Trust to be able to get the probate protection alongside that, you can use the code Webinar Trust at checkout, and you get both the Living Trust and the assignment for like $800 if you use that code. It's going to be cheaper than any other attorney is going to do it for you. I can promise you that. We have really good partners. This is a like limited trust. Okay. They have like some specific provisions in there. It's kind of templated. It is not a nuanced, intricate, complex, revocable trust. If you need that, if you want some other stuff, if you have a kid that needs SSI, if you have other things, you probably want to go talk to an estate planner or a tax attorney in your state that can work with you on that. If you need something, I don't want to say vanilla, but curated to digital assets and done the right way, basic, then we can do that for you for $800 all in, if you use the code Webinar Trust at checkout. He says, how do I list value since it's always changing? What was the free midnight coin and how could I have gotten it while in Anchorage? So Anchorage didn't accept that airdrop. Anchorage does not accept airdrops because, well, airdrops are sketchy and you have to provide trust lines with whoever that counterparty is. Trust lines have been hacked. People have lost stuff. So just be aware of that if you are participating with trust lines. Zaman is probably the best one for that if you're wanting to hold it on a hot wallet. They have good security. I like We'd Say. I think that they have a good product. They did start charging for transactions out. They didn't used to do that. So, you know, they're clipping a good bit of XRP for people moving in and out of that wallet. If you're going to hold it long term, it's probably a good solution. And you can, you know, absolutely use a lot of the functionality that's built into the XRPL to get airdrops if you're going to do that. But again, be aware that trust lines can be hacked. There can be issues with those. Operate under caution. So that's how you would have received the midnight airdrop if you had it there and, you know, set up the trust line. When it comes to listing the value, so when you move the asset into the LLC on the capital contributions page, you're going to list the token and the price you bought it at, whatever that value was at the time. So if it's 20 basis, it's 20 cents or 30 cents or whatever, that's what you're going to list as the value of the contribution with the total number of tokens. And you get that notarized or time stamped in some way to be able to show when that was actually transferred in there. But you're going to use the cost basis at which you bought the token for the contribution. Hopefully that answers your question. And again, if you guys want an LLC, we can do that piece for you too. I think if you do just the LLC, just the LLC, it's $2,000 if you use the code 50 off 50 OFFDAG LLC. That's 50 OFFDAG LLC. Get you everything you need for a digital asset holding company there in Wyoming. It's actually an alternative investment holding company. And, you know, it's curated for digital assets and private equity. But, you know, our team will work with you and work with Laughlin to maintain the corporate veil. You get EIN, articles of organization, certificate of good standing, the templated operating agreement, banking memorandum, everything you're going to need, all one-stop shop for $2,000. 744 JCO. They say, Jake, when will the little people with less than 50,000 XRP tokens be able to do business with DWP? I'm sure the line is long and we are committed. Believe me, we want to democratize access. We're actively working on a solution right now that we're going to be able to bring to market, hopefully in the first half of this year. And I think people are going to be excited about it, and you will be in the ecosystem. You'll be able to participate and get access to a lot of the products and solutions. And then obviously post price appreciation, you know, we'll keep the minimums pretty close to where they're at. We might move it. We'll probably have something similar to like JP Morgan Private Client and then JP Morgan Wealth Management, right? So wealth management has a much lower threshold than the private client side. We'll have the family office side at 20 million for the other additional services, but we'll have the wealth management below that so that a lot more people can participate post price appreciation. And we're working on other solutions too. Don't worry. Jordan Clark, they say, hey, Jake, been watching for a while. I've been able to accumulate 10,000 plus XRP. Don't tell people how much you have, man, with your name here on your YouTube. And thousands of other coins, XTC, XLM, HBAR, and Algorand. Would I be eligible for advisor? What's the best course never selling? So our minimum, if it's a diversified basket of assets, is $500,000. If you have stocks, you can include those and move those over to Digital Wealth Partners. You can absolutely book a call and talk to them. But the institutional custody product currently is only available for 50,000 XRP as a minimum. But you can get an advisor. So if you want to pay the $300 and talk to an advisor, they can absolutely work with you and give you financial advice. They have the licenses to be able to do that. They operate in a regulated way. We're an SEC regulated RIA going through the SEC audit right now, which is the annual audit that they put RIAs through. So yeah, I would just reach out or go to digitalwealthpartners.net, go to the contact us form and book a call. Michael Preachford, they say, hey, Jake, blessings, Mastermind Carbon One LLC, ready for price appreciation. Do you have a bank recommendation? We used to recommend Mercury a lot. They've changed their onboarding and it's been more difficult for people to get an account there. Old Glory seems to be probably the best solution at this time. We don't have a link or a partnership with them. They've just been really good to work with, and a lot of people have been able to get accounts there pretty easily. So that would probably be my recommendation to get an account for your LLC would be Old Glory. And again, we're working on solutions. Pine Tree Reeler says, legend. What's up, my dude? Carbon One DWP member here. Awesome. They say, glad to be working with you, by the way. Thank you for trusting us and being a client. They said, love the interview the other night with the meme guys. Best one I've seen in a while. You did great. Keep up with the conviction. Keep being you. Thank you, man. I don't really know how else to be. I get on here and I'm the same person. If you meet me out in public, I don't know how to. My wife tells me this all the time. She's like, I can tell exactly what you're thinking by your facial expressions. I don't have a good poker face. I don't know how to be any other way. So thank you for the kind words and the support and willingness to work with us. I like going on these other podcasts. There's a lot of other good people in the space that put out good content. People were nice enough to come on my podcast or my channel and allow me on theirs early on. And it really helped, get our presence out there. And so I want to make sure that I'm doing that for other people too, kind of giving them a leg up. It's fun. And I want to give back to other people because, again, it's kind of a pay it forward type thing for me. We got Clem. They say legend meester. Brad mentioned that he thought that 100x might be aggressive price prediction over the next few years, which was kind of a letdown. I'm going with you for 4 to 5 digit prediction based on the maths. Thank you. I don't know. I wasn't part of that conversation when he answered it that way. Ripple has to be conservative in how they talk about price. Like I just mentioned, many of the conversations I've had with a lot of counterparties, none of them mention price. Because they operate in a regulated industry, I'm a little weird. So I own Digital Wealth Partners and Digital Ascension Group. I'm the principal and the majority shareholder. I'm not an advisor. I'm not, regulated. I can't give you financial advice. I come on here and tell you guys that every single time. You should make your own decisions. Talk with a financial advisor. They're going to tell you to do something different than what I'm doing. And again, my opinions are my opinions. They're not the opinions of the firm, Digital Ascension Group, or Digital Wealth Partners. But I'm able to come on here and just be myself, hang out with you guys, answer questions, be candid, not have to have canned answers. I don't like that. Like a lot of these people at financial institutions that are highly regulated get on social media or on CNBC or Fox or wherever, and they're very cold and reserved and calculated in the way that they answer stuff. I would rather just be real and just tell you guys what I really think. So I've tried to orchestrate things in a way where I can do that. And I'm going to continue to do it until, somebody tells me otherwise. We got Kosk. They say, I'm 30K in debt and I've taken out a $10,000 loan to invest in XRP. How long? It's not a good idea. How long before I can pay my debt off using XRP? You sent me pounds here, so I'm assuming you're in the UK. Don't over leverage yourself to invest in this asset, right? I would figure out a solution where you're able to provide value and create value in society that allows you to pay that debt off. I wouldn't rely on an investment to do it. I'm not saying it's not going to work out. I'm just saying, that's risky to add additional debt to hopefully pay off the other debt. I don't know is the answer. I was very confident that we would see something at the end of last year. I came on here and told you guys that, and then that didn't happen. So I'm hesitant to put out any timeframes or timelines on stuff. Maybe it's the Chinese calendar that they were talking about. I don't know. I would love to see it in that time frame. I mean, that's like a week away, but I don't know. I'm waiting on these macro events. All of these things have to happen. It's not just a magic flip of the switch moment and they turn this stuff on. There has to be a real demand for the token to drive the price to the level it needs to be. And that's going to come from global, large enterprise players and exchanges. It's not going to be retail that does that. And the only way they're going to do that is if they have to have it and they're migrating to this new system and they're going to be able to be using it. Permission Dex, again, goes live here in just a week. Maybe they're waiting for that to be put in place before they roll this deal out. I know Evernorth, they haven't finalized their SPAC yet. Maybe they're waiting till after that goes live and they're able to use XRP to go, finalize this SPAC. I don't know. Timelines seem correlated for all that to happen, but until real world macroeconomics play out, I can't, it's not me. I'm not the one doing it. I can just see this domino effect playing out, and I come on here and talk about it with you guys. But until it does, unfortunately, the price is going to continue to trend with Bitcoin and the rest of the market. We'll take a couple more super chats, and then we'll wrap it up tonight. Mr. Bracey says, hey, Jake, do you think ZBEC will be one of the ones you use long-term, seeing it's so qualified, or would you invest in something else? I don't own any ZBEC. I know people that have made money on ZBEC. I made money on a bunch of tokens in 2020 and 2021, 13 different positions. I think most people should be diversified. I think ZBEC has sound fundamentals and partnerships. It's a good use case and application for the technology. Ripple, I will tell you, listening to the Ripple community day to day, G Treasury, they're talking about payroll. They're talking about paying people up to the day using their stuff. That kind of disintermediates ZBEC. Now, they're talking about global enterprises, okay? ZBEC might be more like a Gusto or something domestic here in the US that gains market share in specific applications or for smaller enterprises or medium to small size companies. And maybe market share is taken by Ripple for the large treasury management and payroll and that side. There's a couple different market segments there. But, for huge price and inflows and adoption, you probably want the one Ripple's going after. You got Electronium. There's other stuff that's peer-to-peer, small application payments, less than $10,000 that will be adopted. So I don't know how it's going to turn out over the long term. Sounds good, has sound fundamentals. I invested in 13 of those things early on that all seemed that way. And luckily for me, we saw price appreciation for the whole market. I don't know that that's going to be the case for this utility bull run. But again, has sound fundamentals. If you want to make an allocation, if you've done the research and you think it's a good investment, talk to a financial advisor and pull the trigger. And I have a video on it on my channel if you want to go watch that. I can tell you it's not held by institutions at this point. That's one of the things for me is I want my stuff in institutional custody. ZBEC is not on the roadmap for Anchorage or any other financial institution that I'm aware of holding it anytime soon. Crypto Beginners Australia 8451 says, hey Jake, massive follower from Brisbane. Awesome, dude. for over a year now. Appreciate all that you do. I have a company and a self-managed super fund in Australia. Can you work with that, or better off individually? We can do both. We can do all three. If you want to do all three, if you're holding crypto in each one of those, we would love to work with you at Digital Wealth Partners. Again, you just go to digitalwealthpartners.net, go to the contact us form, sign up, talk to an advisor, see if it's a good fit for you. There are fees. We charge for the services we provide. It's not like it's Caleb and Brown where it's free to hold your stuff there until you trade something. We have lower cost on trades than they do. But if everybody has a different need and different wants, and their solution might fit you better than us. I would talk with an advisor. I would say our custody there is, it's the same place that BlackRock holds their stuff. BlackRock doesn't hold their assets with Caleb and Brown. So if you wanted it the same place as BlackRock, we democratize access to that. XRP 589 Staker. They say, what are your thoughts on post of Binance Wintermute and Seabase pumping and dumping Bitcoin and Ethereum, liquidating the customers? As long as there's not regulatory oversight in this industry, you're going to continue to see people take advantage of stuff. So, I don't approve of it. It's not something that I advocate for or like seeing, but I understand why they're doing it. And again, I think they'll continue to do it, unfortunately, until there's high levels of compliance in the space that force people to be good actors. Running up on time here. I'm going to take one more super chat. We'll just go all the way to the bottom. If I miss your super chat, you can always reach out to us on social media. Actually, I think I have a couple here that I was supposed to read off, so I'll finish with those, because otherwise my wife will be upset with me. Here we go. She's nice enough to send them to me. So this is the one I missed from last week. American Apple, or Monday. They say, hey, thanks for helping me out. I really appreciate it. My question was, hey, Jake, when you have an LLC set up and you're successfully onboarded with DWP, is there a way for DAG or DFO to help with the applying for long-term work visas or green cards to the U.S. if you're an international client? If not directly, are there some referrals that can be made? Yeah, we definitely have referrals. We have people on our network that can help you with that. There's a certain concierge service that we know of. It's not cheap, but we can get it done. So keep that in mind. It's probably not something you need right now, but post price appreciation, we absolutely have partners and solutions out there to be able to help you get a visa or citizenship here if you need it. I got enough time for one more. We'll grab one more. Again, here's the code if you need the LLC, just for people before we wrap up. Again, it's 50 off, 50 OFF DAG LLC. That gets you everything end to end for your holding company there in Wyoming. If you are domestic here in the US, we can set it up if you're international, but there's some extra stuff there. But we do recommend that highly if you are domestic and you have at least $50,000 to $80,000 in your crypto portfolio. All right, last but not least, we got Rockin' HL. He says, does cripple, it's 11 o'clock. Does Ripple work with all the partners, acquisitions, etc. without XRP? Simple question for a simple man and simple mind. Bless you. So in the beginning, yes. When they made the acquisition of Ripple Prime, when they made the acquisition of G Treasury, when they made the acquisition of Rail and Palisade, they made strategic investments in these companies early on and advocate for the use of XRP, but till they're really brought into the fold, they're not going to be using XRP until Ripple kind of mandates that. And obviously they're doing that because it's at the core of their business and what they want to happen. I can tell you there's other partners and other people that I've met at Swell that are absolutely using XRP in different capacities and building things on chain for the use of XRP in their applications, partnered with Ripple that Ripple's made strategic investments in. I was on a call with one of them this morning. So the answer is yes and no. Not in the beginning, but over the long term and the duration, absolutely. We'll grab one more. I got enough time. Simplify Marine, thank you for your service. They say, hey, Jake, the XRP Master Jedi. Would you agree that the 4 things that XRP needs for institutional adoption is clarity, liquidity, cover for institutions in DeFi, and L2 people being educated on the XRPL? I'm going to defer to David Schwartz. He said the main 2 things in opposition for adoption of XRP at this current time are the regulatory environment and the volatility in the asset. So you kind of the first 2 that you mentioned here. I don't know that DeFi is absolutely needed to get the payment component going, but that'll be a later deal. And then education for sure. I'm on here advocating for that. Many others are doing the same thing. But as far as institutional adoption goes, I do think that they need regulatory clarity, which they already have around XRP. And then there needs to be enough liquidity in the asset, and it needs to be a high stable price for them to want to hold it on their balance sheet and on in their books. And that's going to be it for me. Again, appreciate you guys taking time out of your Monday and Wednesday nights to come hang out with me. You always ask great questions. We would love to see you in the mastermind. If you want to go check that out, it's $2. If you use the code BeyondBroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO like Mary Oscar gets you the first month for $2. There at beyondbroke.com. If you want to work with a wealth advisor for your digital asset portfolio, whether you have enough or not, you can always reach out to Digital Wealth Partners, and they will take time and meet with you. I think it's $300 for a consult. If you do qualify, they'll give you a free consult just to see if it's a good fit for you. If you do have over 50,000 XRP, and yeah, we would love to work with you there as well. If you guys want to see anything, I try to keep you updated with everything that's going on. We talk about this and a lot more in the mastermind, a lot more in depth. I'm a little more candid than what I share here publicly. So if you want access to that, we would love to see you over there, give you the code, and then the LLC, and we went over the trust deal also. So with that, I'm going to wrap it. I hope you'll have a wonderful Wednesday, a wonderful week, and we'll see you guys on the next one.